Well, thank you. I apologize for not having been able to make it earlier. I suspect maybe you know why. I was on the flight coming back from D.C. Late last week, I was invited to go to the State of the Union. I've not been. I've turned it down before. It's on my bucket list. Time is running out. I wanted to go. But I hustled back to make sure I could visit with you today. And, you know, if you ever get a chance, can I suggest you go, and I must share with you, if I can, just one little brief story why. What you see on television is not what you see in the chamber at all. At all. One little example, if you watch the speech, you know how when the president is done, he walks out the aisle, and you have the impression from the camera that there's just this massive, everybody has just gone to the center to greet him and to get his autograph and so on. Is that a fair statement? Okay, when you're sitting up there, when you look down, it is mass exit. The floor is empty. If that camera just spanned a little bit, there's no one left. There's 2 or 3 deep, you know, at the end there, just so the cameras can get close and make it look like there's lots of people. And I was like, wow, really? And the whole thing is it's like an orchestra. You can tell who in which area is the designated stander-upper, who's the designated clapper. I mean, I just sat there and laughed at it. It was a fun experience. So anyway, I'm really pleased, Nancy. Thank you for the invitation to always be with you. Sometimes I ask myself, do I like coming because we have such a kinship and we're partners, or do I like coming because misery loves company? I've decided it's because I just like being partners with you. But let me give you, if I can, some good news. We get data all the time, and it's been pretty doggone negative, I have to tell you, for far too long. We have all the indicators now of recovery that are real, and they're happening. We're seeing the results. Our unemployment rates are going down. The forecast in February, I expect to be flat. Now, you would say to me, in my first term, that would be a moment of depression. I'm going to cheer if it's flat. It will be the first time it's been flat in a whole long time. But we're seeing our ports doing more business, up 30%, some year over year, some records. We're seeing agriculture up. We're seeing aerospace, obviously, and IT, global health, life sciences. There is a lot of really, really good indicators out there that we're on the road to recovery. Our biggest single threat right now, candidly, is Europe. It is Europe. If Europe has a default and it triggers a banking crisis, it will hit us, and then it's no holds barred. Interestingly enough, our consumers have built up a resilience. It's not something necessarily want to talk about, but when Congress failed us miserably in August, it took a direct and immediate dramatic impact on consumer confidence in our state. And as a sales tax state, we saw our consumer spending plummet, and that's what led to the $1.4 billion forecasted shortfall. When they screwed up again royal in November, everybody took it for granted. It didn't have an impact on people's spending at all. So we built up a resilience, not something that I think is necessarily good news, but when you're a sales tax state, we need to have some resilience to politics and not let that determine whether people are going to spend and whether we're going to have the revenue to do what we need to do. So the recovery has taken too long. There's just no question about that. The fact of the matter is we've still got too many people who are unemployed. We're still struggling, but we are on the clear road to recovery. I hope when I pass the baton to my successor, I can say we are definitely on the road, out of the woods, and on our way. And that's my goal, to make sure I have full attention for the next year to make sure that happens. I want to talk with you briefly, if I can, about 4 things that I think are very important. I've got a number of asks to the legislature, but 4 things that I think are important to all of us in this room. And first is they've got to pass a budget, and they've got to do so quickly. Secondly, they have got to look at revenue, and I want to talk a little bit with you about that. Third, they've got to look at school reform, and I'll explain to you why I think that's important in just a minute. And fourth, they've got to look at transportation infrastructure and investment in our future and create jobs. So let me talk a little bit first about the budget. In December, when I brought him into special session, we obviously were looking at a $1.4 billion shortfall, add a reserve, so I think $2 billion is the right number. They obviously left town with a down payment of about just short of $500 million. But if the truth be known, that $500 million is, even in these tough times, either low-hanging fruit or fruit on the ground. They now are about to cut $1.5 billion, and they have to, even if they do revenue, and it'll be the hardest decisions they've ever made as elected officials in their lives. There is nothing left easy to cut. They have Sophie's choice just like I did. For every tough decision, there's another tough decision, and you just have to take the tough choices and move on and do the best you can. They're not ready to do that right now, but they're clearly going to have to. They've got a long way to go to get to the $1.5 billion. When I say $1.5 billion, by the way, I want you to know that since 2008, we have already cut $10.5 billion. We are a $32 billion budget. So you would say, well, why is 1.5 difficult? Well, because about 64% now is off limits, and of the remaining, we only have less than 18 months when they get the job done, the results of which is every day that they don't do something, the hole gets bigger for them, and the decisions get tougher. We have cut K through 12, we have cut higher education, our safety net, public safety. We've cut our state employees. And we've cut them all hard, but they're all vulnerable, and we're all going to end up having to see to it they're cut again, unfortunately. So they have tough choices, and I know full well, like you do, as CEOs and persons in charge of your own budgets, that everything's connected. Whatever they do now will have a short-term impact that can be quite negative, or a long-term, or both. And we will pay if we're not careful about what we do. So I've asked them to do something that in these tough times, some in this room would say, why would you ask that? Because I don't think we can let that budget go the way it is. The places that we're going to have to cut again, there are only 4 places. And when you go to those same 4 things, because that's where all the money is, it's in education, it's in healthcare, it's in public safety, it's in social services. You go there again, and you're cutting into the core. So I bet I would ask you in this room, when's the last time the state raised the sales tax? You would say yesterday. I'd ask you when was the time before? You'd say the day before that. In fact, the truth is it was 1983. It was the worst recession till this one. Most of the money was used for education, and the CEO of the state at that time was John Spellman. So John Spellman, Republican governor, did what he felt he had to do to save education and services at that critical time in our history. He's now supporting what I'm asking the legislature to do again, because frankly, we can't afford to cut education. We cannot afford to let people in prison out 5 months early. If you want to ask me that question, I'd be happy to tell you how that will game the system if you let them out 5 months early. They won't really serve much time at all. And then when they get out, they really won't get any supervision. Our commitment has to be to public safety. And to our senior citizens and the developmentally disabled, if we can't provide them services in their home, they have to go to an institution. We ought to allow them short-term, long-term consequences. We ought to allow them to stay in their homes with dignity, and this will allow them to do that. So I don't mean to tell you that this is going to be easy, but I do want you to know I don't believe that you can cut the school year. I don't think that's right. We ought to be increasing the school year. I don't believe you can or should cut levy equalization. And I don't believe you should continue to increase tuition in higher education in this state. That's what's at stake in education. It's the future of our kids. It's the future of our state. So I'm asking you to think about that 85-year-old and ask whether she can't live her life out with dignity in her own home rather than in an institution. I'm asking you to see to it that we have public safety, that you know full well they're not getting out early and coming out unsupervised. And I'm asking you to consider investing in education in the state of Washington. So for that, 1/2 penny, 3 years only, subject to a vote of the people, and that means I need your help. Third thing, has to do with school reform. You know, it's a volatile issue in many ways. Nobody has it perfect. I love those that won Race to the Top this last year. Only one of them is performing. All the rest are not performing. They overpromised and underdelivered, and they're not getting money. Hawaii is completely losing their funding from the feds. So the fact of the matter is we've tried to do school reform the right way. I think the McCleary decision by the state Supreme Court recognizes that, actually, and says, now, go ahead and keep going, but fund it. So let me tell you what I think we need to do this legislative session. First and foremost, when it comes to evaluations, we have been building an evaluation system from the bottom up. It's now considered one of the best in terms of the promise that it can deliver in the country. Others are failing miserably. We now want to use that tool to make sure that in front of every classroom is a good teacher, at every school is a good principal. If we can do that, our kids, our schools, our classrooms will succeed. As governor, I have traveled our state. I have yet to see a good classroom without a good teacher, a good school without a good principal. So this is what we need to use that tool to do now. The other area is we have got to take after this low-performing school problem. What should we do as a state? I think we should do what we do best, and that's innovate. So look at our institutions of higher education across the state. Have them go in and take one of those low-performing schools through their schools of education. Use freedom and flexibility and creativity. Make that thing perform. Then we'll have better trained teachers because it will do for them some on-the-job training. We'll take the best practices to scale across the state. I am convinced that that will be a kind of model that will be replicated around the country. I'm very proud that we won the race to the top when it comes to early childhood education. We created the department in my second year in office. We have now been recognized by Harvard University as the leader, and we're partnering with them. But we've done everything we can. We just need the money now to implement. With this $60 million grant that we got in Race to the Top, we can do just that. I'm very proud of where we're headed, because if we can get our early learners ready to learn by the time they hit kindergarten, they will succeed in school and they will succeed in life. Our universities are our future. They're the economic engine of the state. We do state need grants, but what about that middle income student? We can't keep raising tuition and not lose the middle eligibility to go to our higher education institutions. I am proud of our higher education in this state. I think we have some of the finest higher education institutions in the country, and by far and away our CCs and technicals have a reputation across the country. But if we don't invest, we cannot expect to get any return for our students and for our own economy. I also believe we have to raise the educational attainment of all of our students in higher education. We can't afford to take 5-6 years to graduate someone. We can't afford not to have a kid transfer from a CC to a 4-year easily. We can't afford to have 30% of our kids come out of high school who are not ready to get a job or eligible to go to college because they've got to take remedial courses. So we want to create the Office of Student Achievement solely focused on how do we get our kids ready for career, for college, and beyond. This will replace the Higher Education Coordinating Committee that was in existence for a number of years that is not meeting the needs of our students today. So that's my last recommendation with regard to us making sure we do deliver. I don't believe you ask the public for a half penny in sales tax if you're not willing to say we're going to do reform. And if you don't say we're willing to make sure that every class has a good teacher, every school has a good principal, every kid has a right to get a good quality education in the state of Washington, and we're going to do reforms to make it happen, the public is not going to give us that half penny to invest in education.